Can I get a thumbs up from our round one artists if we are ready? Oh snap, it's time. Let's make some noise one more time for round one, everybody. Come on. On your mark. Get set. Wait. Remember, this circle gotta move. We're gonna move it this way. On your mark. Get set. Go. 20 minutes, DJ Jimmy Bars. Give us some funny.
All right, we have just begun our very first round of Art Battle in Chicago tonight. We have 12 absolutely stunning artists stepping up to the easels for you tonight. We have our first 6 artists in our first qualifying round right now. They have 20 minutes only to take on the clock and vie for your votes. We will then have a second qualifying round of our next 6 artists, and then the top 2 artists, as voted by the audience, will move forward from round 1 and from round 2 into a third and final showdown. Here we are with Victoria Naumova, and this is actually Victoria's very first Art Battle round, and she is working on a portrait. Victoria is very well known for creating these just stunningly impactful and very colorful pieces and relating them back to people that she has met in her life. So that's always a really interesting take from Victoria. And I'm absolutely so looking forward to seeing the way that her studio style translates up to the 20-minute time limit. It's always interesting to see how artists are using their studio style and their recognizable imagery and how they can kind of distill that into this timed format. Here we are with Pilar, and Pilar is starting off with this really gorgeous series of cues that she's put onto the canvas. Very ethereal and looking almost cloud-like right now, definitely giving me impressionist vibes. And looks like she is working on something central. I'm believing that this is going to end up being a figure. And fun to see Pilar working in this way, because this is unusual for an artist to be working on such a large amount of wet paint and then be working on their central figure as an addition on top of that. Usually we see 2 kind of pieces coming together. Here we are with Palos, and Palos is actually the 2022 Chicago City champion for Art Battle. So we have a heavy hitter in the round tonight. I absolutely adore seeing Palos up at the easel. He has just such an incredible way of painting. It's so unique. And we'll chat about that a little bit more when we come back around. Here we are with Andrew the Rose Vickers. Andrew has painted in Art Battle Chicago many times before, and we are so happy to have him back at the easel. Andrew often is painting animal-based pieces that have some sort of whimsical component. So we can always rely on having some kind of unexpected component from Andrew's pieces, something that draws us in, perhaps with some humor or a little bit of storytelling. And here we are with our wild card artist of the night, and she has finished loading up the canvas with all of that red paint. We have a little bit of green down in the bottom, so I think that we're working on a landscape here, but I feel that this landscape is going to end up being quite conceptual. And we have a dark black circle happening there as well. Here we are with Metzli Flores, and this is Metzli's second time painting in Art Battle. She painted for her very first Art Battle just last month, and we were so pleased with her. We wanted to have her back up at the easel. Metzli's work often incorporates a lot of texture, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing if she brings that tonight or if that was a singular battle strategy last time. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about the color palette that Victoria has chosen here. We have just these super vibrant and saturated colors and it is just looking absolutely stunning. This seafoam green up against the red is just creating this really incredible color vibration. Back with Palos, and we can see that he is just so carefully just swiping away small marks with his thumb there. And now thumbing through. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm so stoked. So this little book that he has, which I had originally thought was going to be a tiny little sketchbook, is actually a book of gold leaf, and he's using his thumb to adhere the gold leaf right out of that tiny little book. I don't think that we've seen that from Palos before, so he is an art battle competitor who continues to evolve and astound. Back with Andrew, and Andrew is also choosing to go with some hot and cold colors. We have this really vibrant red over top of our kind of greeny yellow background, and then leaning into some blue. Back with our wildcard artist. And I think that maybe she's starting to make a little campfire there. That is my prediction. We're also seeing this kind of flame-like color play coming up from that black orb. There's definitely a story here, and I feel like it's starting to lean into the surreal. Back with Metzley here, and she has just gotten so much done in only 8 minutes, and has just done such a fantastic job at creating this profile portrait so far. Profiles are so difficult to execute because you really need to have a very considered understanding of the proportions of the face. Back with Pilar, and we can see some texture has now been incorporated into the hair of the figure. And she's now starting to add in some brighter tones within the skin color. And we have this really interesting pose for our character as well. I'm just starting to kind of notice that it looks like there's a hammock in the background that our figure is hanging out in. And as I'm saying that, Pilar is fleshing that out a little bit and adding some netting marks. Back with Palos here. And Palos has been quite sparing with the gold leaf, which I'm actually really enjoying. He's using it so much as an accent color and not something that is overwhelming the composition, and I definitely have respect for that. And speaking of subtle additions, we just saw Palos just with that tiny little red dot create his kind of his sun or moon in the background. He always creates these very otherworldly landscapes. Back with Andrew, and something that I've always admired about Andrew's work and the way that he paints is he has this wonderful way of compartmentalizing color so it feels separate, but at the same time harmonious and blending in small areas to kind of create those connections between the colors. So we have colors that are standing quite on their own. Like if you look at the red right next to the green outline, there's quite a lot of contrast there. Back with our wildcard artist. And we definitely have some fire going in the center of this black oval here. And it's really fluttering upward into the sky. So she definitely has a plan and has had a plan all along, because she started off by creating that focal point of light in the middle of that red. That was a very early on decision. So for wildcards, they don't have any time really to plan what they're going to paint. So very cool to see this artist working from a plan, very evidently from a plan already. Back with Metzley here, and it's such a delicate little moment that she's created for us here with this piece. We have the hand, the palm gently cradling what I think is a little turtle. Back with Victoria here, and Victoria is adding some embellishments into the neck. This piece is just absolutely stunning. It's very, it reminds me, it's evocative of like a contemporary take on maybe Klimt. But at the same time, it's much more minimalist than that. And I really appreciate where Victoria has created flourishes and where she's held back. Back with Pilar here. And we can see that Pilar is now starting to add in some features into the face of our figure here. Just creating some simple shapes that really communicate the hollows and highlights of the face of where the light would fall. Back with Palos here, and he is continuing to create these subtle moments and really, really careful brush strokes. We can see that he's using a liner brush right now to create these super, super thin, delicate, reaching branches. There's something within Paulos's style that is almost evocative of traditional Japanese brushwork, like ink brushwork, but he brings so much of his own style to it with choosing these kind of eerie subject matters and unconventional palettes. And there we go. There is our fun, whimsical moment from Andrew the Rose Vickers. Our octopus looks like he is holding, I think, dice. So fun. Always love waiting to see what Andrew does. Back with our wildcard artist, and we now have the addition of what I think is going to end up being a figure. Looks like someone climbing in a dress. And I think that we are starting to see the depiction of a face here, someone kind of staring into the fire. Maybe it's a fire dish, like in your backyard. Back with Metzley here, and again, there's just such a beautiful, soft, emotive quality from this piece and this tender moment that our character is having with this little turtle. And I have to commend Metzley on specifically the gesture of the hand that she's been able to capture. That is super, super difficult. And she's definitely communicated the way that the hand bends at the wrist there. Victoria has now added some of that yellow into the kind of necklace stack that she has going on for her character. And we're now seeing her going in with a sponge brush to kind of add these angular lines. And she's going in with just a slightly darker red around the head of the figure to kind of emphasize certain lines and communicate hair. And I love that there is this super subtle contrast. Victoria might be a new Art Battle Chicago favorite of mine. And with that said, as we are choosing favorites, you also have the job of choosing a favorite artist. So make sure that you go to artbattle.com/AB2474 and make sure that you cast your vote. That is where you will register to vote, and you can also bid in silent auction to take any of these works home. You don't need to be in the room. We will ship them to you. So if you are falling in love with any of these pieces as they are being created, then make sure that you bid on them and support these artists and collect their works. I also definitely have my eye on this Palos painting here. I feel like I probably have to add a piece of his to my collection soon, so maybe you guys will be bidding with me in the auction. It's such a sparing color palette, but it's so impactful, and the way that he has been able to use contrast here is just quite masterful. Okay, so not dice. I think that these might be beer cans. I feel like I'm starting to recognize maybe a good old Pabst. I think that we're looking at an octopus holding some Pabst Blue Ribbon. Hilarious. Always a fan of Andrew Vickers. So we now have a second edition of a figure from our wildcard artist. We can see that she's adding in some arms here. And we just have 2 minutes only remaining on the clock. So these artists are really getting in their final strokes and shoring up the details for their pieces. We can see that Metzley is adding in some highlights and just really working to continue to harmonize those high and low points of the face.
1 minute and 30 seconds left.
We have about 90 seconds only remaining on the clock. And we now have the appearance of a super satisfying yellow dangling earring from our figure here. I'm wondering whether or not Victoria is going to give us that symmetry satisfaction and bring it to the other side as well. I am not so secretly hoping for that. Back with Pilar, who has given us this really wonderful contemplative moment with this figure. This definitely feels very dreamlike, and I believe that Pilar actually had in her artist statement that she takes inspiration directly from her dreams, and you can really see that being quite evident in this piece and kind of the ethereality that it has. Into our final 30 seconds here. We can see Palos is just tidying up a few areas. Very chill, not rushed at all. Definitely the mark of a pro. I think he even has painted the sides of his canvas with red, which is such a great.
Let me hear you. 3, 2, 1. Brushes down, artists. Make some noise for round 1. Let's go crazy. A lot of beautiful paintings, a lot of different paintings. It's time.
Started round number 2 of Art Battle in Chicago tonight, and I have to say that I'm particularly excited about the artist whose easel we just saw, Bonnie Wu. I will get to that in just a minute as to why she is a fan favorite. She's a visiting artist, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Here we are with Alejandro Mena, and Alejandro is making his second ever appearance at Art Battle Chicago. And we were so impressed with his ability last time. We just had to have him back. Here we are with Amy Schuler, and Amy is laying down some black paint, it's some black tape, looks like electrical tape, and she's got this kind of square grid going on. She's got this square grid very neatly mapped out with this tape, and it looks like she is starting to create a drawing within it. I think I see the beginnings of an eye. Here we are with Muerto, and Muerto is also making his art battle debut tonight. And we can see that Muerto has some central component of pink going on in the center. I believe that this is going to be a hand. I feel that is pretty obviously a hand. And for me to be able to tell that with only 2 minutes in the lapse is pretty impressive. Hands are very, very difficult to paint hands. Here we are with Nicholas Canego, and also it is his first time at our battle tonight. Nicholas is an artist who paints a variance of subject matter, but definitely seems to have a specialization in portraits. So I'm wondering and hoping that Nicholas will do a portrait tonight. Looks like we've got a background color being established with a cerulean or a cobalt blue right now. Complete canvas coverage. And here we are with our wild card artist. And our wild card has established a field of color as well, this time adding in some components of green, and Norma looks like she is adding some flourishes of orange over top. I'm thinking potentially we could be going with some fish or maybe a butterfly perhaps, just from the indication of the line work here. And here we are with Bonnie Wu. So Bonnie, I'm very excited to have at the Art Battle Chicago Easel right now because she is a previous Toronto champion, or Mississauga, which is a city that is outside of Toronto, and she actually has made it all of the way to the Canadian National Championship level, representing that region. And it's no surprise that she has quite a lot done on the easel tonight. We can definitely expect a really emotive portrait from her. Back with Alejandro, and he's now introduced these curves, and I think that we're starting to see the beginnings of a skull right now, and I'm interested to see what he's going to be doing with the negative space at the bottom of the canvas right now. The imagery here is coming through super strongly, and the strong use of that skull imagery with the really impactful contrast of the super saturated red and the black there is definitely a hit with me for Alejandro. Back with Amy here, and Amy is definitely establishing a face within this square. And so we've got two eyes going, and the way that she's executing this, it almost looks a little bit like she's using some continuous line work, which is where you take segments of a face and use a continuous line to execute them, as opposed to lifting your brush, and it creates some really interesting flowing lines. Back with Muerto here, and Muerto is using some gray tones to paint over top of this pink that he had used to originally establish the hot pink of the hand, his underpainting. And he's allowing some of that hot pink to kind of shine through the digits a little bit. Back with Nicholas, and with 5 minutes having elapsed, Nicholas spent his first 5 minutes entirely making sure that he had a super even surface of blue to work over top of. So that's definitely a brave strategy to use your first 5 minutes on creating a flat color work. So looking forward to seeing how Nicholas's piece continues to evolve in his final 15 minutes of the round. Right now we've got this kind of toned out white color. And back to our wild card, who is still working with the red over top of that, the streaks of blue that are reading very much like water right now. And red can be a tough color to layer over darker colors because it doesn't always retain that opacity. With Bonnie, and Bonnie has infused quite a lot of color into the background. We have some magenta up in the top corner and some darker blues down in the bottom. And on our far side, we can see that she's really blended those together and harmonized them while keeping them quite loose and gestural on the other side. And her main figure so far, her midtones have been executed with the cerulean blue, and we can see that she's also gone in a little bit with some ultramarine to kind of get some contrast into the eyes there. Back with Alejandro, who is, speaking of contrast, adding in some highlight color now with a toned out white. He's using a pink to create a mid-tone on top of his skull and is working with white over top of that red, which can definitely be a challenge. Acrylic paint dries super quick, but it's 20 minutes, guys. It's really tight timeline to have different layers drying enough to work over top of them. So that's an added challenge that these artists definitely are taking on once they are painting in a time setting. Amy here, still working on her face, very focused on creating compartmentalized shadows at this point, and in limited color palette of black and white. I'm wondering whether or not Emmy is going to expand this composition outside of the initial square, and if she's going to be adding any color in as well. Her work, when we had a chance to check out her studio work, is quite colorful, so I would definitely anticipate that you may see some introduction of color into this piece as well. Back with Muerto here, and we can see that Muerto has added in some blue into the joints of his hand. This piece definitely feels very emotive, especially with the super dark background, all of that black. It's feeling very inky. So definitely a surprise from Nicholas tonight. Looks like he's going for an abstract composition, which is definitely not something that I had anticipated from him, but I'm really enjoying the balance that he's establishing here. You can really feel the tension between all of these stacked abstract elements. And how he's adding and balancing these pieces with just these little red triangles. Up with our wild card, and I believe that she is painting a flower. We can see some striations in the petals of the flowers starting to appear. Just getting those little hits of yellow. We are officially at the halfway mark of round number 2 of Art Battle in Chicago. So now is your opportunity to get pre-registered to vote. You don't have to vote yet if you don't want to before these pieces are finished, but you can get pre-registered to vote at artbattle.com/AB2474 so that you are ready when the time comes. You can also bid on any of these pieces, any of the pieces that are created tonight at that same link there. We are having a silent auction and we will mail these pieces to you. You don't need to be in the room to collect them. Back with Bonnie here, and Bonnie's use of tone is just so wonderful here. The establishment of the cerulean as the mid-tone, and then using that ultramarine to get her darkest darks in, and then she's left so many opportunities of white canvas underneath to act as the highlights. Definitely an intelligent way of building a painting. Back with Alejandro here, and we now have the addition of these kind of wild flame-like shapes coming out of the skull, which is super, super satisfying. And really, really enjoying the way that the design is adding to the composition. All right, Amy, I'm so stoked that we're getting fully into color now, especially with this giant pop of this chartreuse color, this really, really gorgeous yellowy green color. It's reading very fluorescent, and it's definitely made a huge impact to the piece. I know that this is also quite performative as well, the way that she's kind of piqued your curiosity with this very careful application of the face, and then used such painterly and aggressive strokes to add in all of that green. I'm sure that the audience is really excited about that. So Muerto now is starting to give us some kind of conceptual additions to this piece, and it looks like we have some mushrooms growing out of the hand now as well. I'm really digging that. We're definitely going more and more, deeper and deeper into surreal territory with Muerto. Oh, I'm so happy to see the highlights being put on those mushrooms as well. I hope that we get a few satisfying little mushroom polka dots. Always love those. Back with Nicholas here, and this piece feels so musical. There's a really interesting musical kind of feeling that it has. It's almost like he's painting like a jazz composition. And yeah, this piece is pretty cool. I like the way that it gives us, it gives our eyes the opportunity to kind of bounce around the canvas and find different places to rest within the composition. Back with our wildcard artist, and we can see that she is nearing the finish line with her flower here, and we now have the central component that has been established. It looks like she is painting with a super small brush, which has got to be something that is adding difficulty to the execution of this piece, especially when you're in that timed setting. We are heading into our we're heading into our final quarter of the round, our final 5 minutes on the clock. Bonnie has just done such a fantastic job at capturing this really intense emotive quality within her portrait. And something that I always enjoy about Bonnie's work is how tight she keeps it in the face and then just kind of explodes painterly energy throughout the rest of the composition. This piece by Alejandro just keeps getting more and more powerful. The continuous addition of symbolic pieces just keeps me coming back for more. We now have this circle on the top forehead of the skull, which is almost looking like a third eye, and now we have the addition of what I think is an eyeball, or it's a heart within a sphere. We'll have to see as the clock ticks down. Amy now adding in some really interesting textural components as well. We can see that she's kind of squiggled paint and squeezed it directly onto the canvas there. But my favorite part of this piece so far is the way that she's used the background color to wisp hair over top of the character's face. Definitely a really smart way to continue to underline the inclusion of the initial painting into the larger, more aggressive components of the painting. Back with Muerto here, and we definitely got our wish with some little polka dots on the mushrooms. It's, I'm wondering, especially with an artist name like Muerto, if this is maybe a zombie hand or a cadaver hand that is growing mushrooms. Back with Nicholas, who has just finished his abstract composition and has decided to do what we call a brush drop and step away a few minutes early from the canvas. It's always difficult to ascertain whether or not a painting is going to end up being overpainted. You would think that that wouldn't happen in art battle, that pieces are overpainted in 20 minutes, but it can happen. So it definitely takes a careful eye to see whether or not a painting needs to be continued or if it's time to step away. Bonnie adding in some pink into the face, bringing in some of that background color within the portrait, really harmonizing the two elements. Alejandro just continuing to kill it with this piece, and I think that the shape, the curving lines shape at the bottom might be some sort of boat, and I'm interested to see whether or not Alejandro in his final 2 minutes decides to tackle the white that's remaining at the canvas, or if he's going to intentionally leave that portion of the canvas blank and use the white as an additional design element within the piece. And it looks like Amy has now removed the tape lines. I think we missed her doing that, but which is too bad. That's always one of my favorite elements of a piece that incorporates tape, is that very satisfying tape pull. But check out the way that the color is playing within the stripes that are left from the tape. Really, really cool. I just am so impressed with this piece. There's a lot of great thoughtful compositional elements, and it's also really fun. Back with Muerto here, who has decided to add a frame within a frame, which, speaking of compositional elements, is also kind of a thing that I love seeing in art battle. A frame within a frame, there's just something that's very satisfying about that, especially when you have an element of the painting that breaks that frame. Our wildcard has now added some additional foliage and another flower into the mix. Back with Bonnie here, and Bonnie has toned out some of the pink that was being introduced into the face the last time that we saw it, and has kept a few strokes quite obvious and has blended out others.
I want to invite every single one of you guys to vote and bid on any of the paintings you see tonight. We still got one round, and your votes are being calculated right now. The top two of round one and the top two of this round, round two, will make the final four. They will go into a final four for that third round, and the winner will be decided out of those four. So at this time, vote, bid, it's about to go down. Final round, let's go. For my people on the bleachers, once the third round starts, we kick everybody off the bleachers. Y'all look comfortable. You look comfortable, so comfortable. But we gonna kick y'all off in a little bit. So, take advantage of that comfort. You good, brother man. DJ G Bars, give us something funky.
Well, hold on, Art Battle Chicago. We got another musical performance for y'all. But before we do that, can y'all make some noise?
Can we say abundance?
Abundance!
Once again, my name is Alan, the official, guys. We got one more round, and I just want to highlight, we got a lot of creators here that help this show run, to help this experience be the experience that it is. I own an organization called Canvas House. I am one small cog in that machine we call Canvas House. And we got two goals. One, teach the youth how to monetize their craft. You see the light-skinned brother out here preaching, that's cool. That's just a cool way of saying, teach our people how to make money off the cool shit we make, all right? Secondly, this is the most important mission, and I hope y'all listen to me because I'm preaching right now, all right? Teach the youth, oh wait, I already said that. Second mission. Illuminate unity with creation. That's our terms of communication. As people of color, people of culture, people of creation, that's the way we talk. With a little bit of paint, with a little bit of dance, with a little bit of music, with a little bit of media. We capture all of it, and we do it together. The greatest thing that we create are relationships, and we will always highlight that. Once again, if you guys have not yet, pick up your phones, open up Instagram, and follow us at KNVS House, Canvas House. This is one of a lot of different programs that we have for our creators, for our people. Because again, they tell us we have no resources, and we have an abundance. Abundance! Last thing I want to say before we announce the finalists. We got these shirts on. Brother Word, come out here. Brother Jiggy, come out here. Brother Word has a shirt that says crime pays. Brother Jiggy has a shirt that says crime drop. We are currently in a position right now where a lot of things are shifting. We want to pose the question, if there was no crime or violence in our communities of color, who would suffer? Nobody. That would be the ideal answer, but because of capitalism, whoever crime pays suffers. So the police, the ambulances, the coroners, the public defenders, those people who profit off of the crime. So why would crime stop if it was up to them? Creation saves so many of it, and creation will also let us pin our way to a new narrative. So, I want y'all, if you guys can, make sure you have these courageous cultural conversations with the brothers and sisters that are here today. Make some noise for yourselves. Yeah, that's the man with the nice jacket. I like that jacket. All right, y'all ready for the finalists? Yeah. No, fuck y'all not. Y'all ready for the finalists? It's after 9, so I can curse now. Alright. You said? Just like saying a bunch of bad words for no reason. Alright. From round 1, in no particular order, can we make some noise? For Victoria and Saul.
Back with Victoria here, and I have to say I'm a little surprised with the lighter tone and lighter palette that she's going for in this round, after the first round qualifying piece being so incredibly saturated. And I'm really excited to see the way that her style translates into these softer hues, and how she brings focus into the face and what colors she uses for contrast. I'm definitely a huge Victoria fan, and really just looking forward to all of the flourishes that she continues to add into this piece. Back with Morito, who made his way into the final round based on painting hands, and here he is at it again. We have 2 hands this time, a similar modality of approaching the canvas this time, with that underlying underpainting of that hot pink, and then layering over top of it with grays and blues. Alejandro has added in some darker elements on either side of the face. I'm wondering if that's going to be turning into something symbolic, or if that is going to be hair. We can see that he's starting to establish the major components of the face We have kind of the eyelids going on, the eyebrows, the shadow underneath the nose, and the lips being established. Paulos just softly diffusing elements of that blue with his rag. I wonder how many rags he goes through in not a single art battle painting, because those have got to get pretty saturated quite quickly. And even just you can see the way that he's holding it. He's holding the back of the rag away from the canvas and using his hand to control the way that he's bouncing it on the canvas and continuing to apply color. Oh, amazing. The addition here of this blue is just setting this piece off. I was honestly a little bit worried about the lack of saturation starting off, but we now have it and it's so balanced. This is a really, really exciting piece. I love the level of eye contact that we're getting from Victoria's character. Back with Muerto here, and he has added in some darker line work into the hands, really starting to kind of delineate the digits of the fingers. Paulos is going to add any of his gold leaf into this piece. I feel like I would really love that. But it is not up to me. That's one of the funny things that happens on the stream, and for anyone viewing Art Battle really, is you get very attached to the pieces at their various stages of completion, and you really hope that your brainwaves somehow will influence the way that the artists are completing their pieces. But they have a plan all their own, and only they know it. Oh, cool. I think that we're actually starting to get some typography elements being added into this portrait by Victoria. Alejandro is now adding some additional design elements into the face with this black line dividing down the center of the face. Definitely kind of giving us a little bit of a surreal factor with this, and definitely kind of calling back to his first round qualifying piece as well. Back with Paulos, and Paulos has now moved into the portion of his painting where he's just kind of making small adjustments and dabbing with his fingers. I would say for the most part, Paulos is done. He might add a few more flourishes here and there, maybe a branch or two, but he's looking like this piece is very finished. Wow, this piece is so incredible. A small detail that I'm finding really wonderful is that the eyebrow is two-toned even. Sometimes you just find little moments within pieces that you end up loving, and it might be an unexpected moment. But for me, in terms of just the visual, I'm loving that eyebrow, that two-toned eyebrow. And the overall impact and statement of this piece, of course, is super strong as well. Muerto has now added in the compositional element of the frame within the painting, and is allowing for his painted hands to kind of break that frame, calling back to his first round qualifying piece. These guys have each created really wonderful companion pieces to their first round qualifying, but also I think are different enough to still hold the audience's attention. Paulos is quite similar to his first round piece, but it's in a landscape format. So I'm hoping that the audience is still doesn't penalize him for that level of similarity. It is a truly stunning piece.